What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another highly combustible reaction. We're going to be jumping into the next one on our Sabaton journey. We're going to start it here with Sabaton history about the Holocaust. Understand, I realize that there are some people out there that will not necessarily want to watch this content. I do not blame you. 100%. I've been putting this one on the back burner because I know that it is so hard for a lot of people. It's not that old of a tragedy, really, if you think about it. And it's just something that I know that some people out there won't want to watch. Totally okay with it. I don't expect you to watch every video. There's obviously a content warning right here on their video. So if it's something that you do not want to see, go ahead and click out now or just jump ahead to the next timestamp. It'll be down in the description and you can go straight to the music video. We're going to dive into this. And then right after this, we're going to follow it up with Sabaton's the final solution and see where we go. Let's jump in and check out the history version portion first.
This episode of Sabaton History is about one of the darkest chapters in human history.
This is the final solution.
It happened on November 9th, 1938. The National Socialist leadership of Germany had gathered in Munich to commemorate the beer hall putsch, Adolf Hitler's failed attempt to grab power 15 years earlier. Then the news arrived that Ernst von Rath had succumbed to his wounds. He was a young German diplomat who had been shot in the German embassy in Paris by Herschel Greenspan, a Polish-German Jew. Joseph Goebbels, German propaganda minister, now addressed the party officials and spoke vividly of a global Jewish conspiracy that aimed to push Germany into a war with France. Outraged, the men rushed to the telephones and urged their local Nazi henchmen to act. What followed was Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass, a nationwide pogrom against Jewish communities in Germany. 1,000 synagogues and prayer rooms were vandalized or set on fire. 7,500 shops were wrecked and looted. Jewish neighborhoods were attacked, and 90 Jews were killed. It was the climax of years of anti-Jewish policies and harassment. Adolf Hitler's chancellorship had turned anti-Semitic rhetoric into state policy. Since mid-1935, Jews faced increased harassment. Under Reinhard Heydrich, the German Security Service, SD, began monitoring Jewish organizations and affairs more closely. To the Nazis, Judaism was not only totally alien to German culture, but also the natural enemy of National Socialism. Hitler believed in an international Jewry that pulled the strings behind both Soviet Bolshevism and Anglo-Saxon capitalism, and Germany must free itself from their influence once and for all. For the Führer's planned cleansing of the Reich, Heydrich recruited Adolf Eichmann, a former desk worker at Dachau concentration camp. It would be his job to implement these stricter policies aimed at excluding Jews from the German economy and everyday public life. By making their lives as miserable as possible, they would push the Jews to voluntarily emigrate from the Reich. They were not to feel welcome nor safe in Germany, and public opinion was to be swayed accordingly. Over the following years, Jews were denied entry into theaters, into cinemas, museums, and restaurants. They were banned from using public transportation and even owning bicycles.
All of this happened. How is it that we still have people out there that are deniers of it? Like, there's so much proof of it happening. There's so much there. Sorry, the cat decided she wanted a history lesson, I'm supposing. That I don't understand how there can be deniers out there. Is it just some kind of false bullshit push? You know what I mean? Like, how does that even happen? How do you just blatantly deny, like, blank out a piece of history? I'll never understand it. Like, very, very interesting what we're getting into so far. Let's continue.
Following years, Jews were denied entry into theaters, into cinemas, museums, and restaurants. They were banned from using public transportation and even owning bicycles. Shopping was restricted to 1 hour a day, and there was a strict
Whoa.
curfew in the evening. And Jews were not allowed to buy certain things like cigars or flowers. They were not allowed to own telephones or typewriters either. They eventually had to wear a yellow badge to visibly differentiate themselves from everyone else, and they paid extra taxes. The Nuremberg racial laws of 1935 were set in place to legally segregate the Jews. Citizenship was restricted to people of German blood. Jews were reduced to mere subjects of the Reich, without political rights. They were fired from the civil service. Teachers and professors were ousted. Jewish-owned shops were attacked. The Hitler Youth Organization chased Jews out of public spaces. The laws were so strictly enforced that even the smallest misconduct could lead to imprisonment or worse.
Or
Jews
death.
lived under a constant fear of inspections, house searches, and death threats. And then Kristallnacht happened. Hitler, however, was furious at Goebbels about inciting all the violence in the streets. An unregulated mob roaming the streets not only discredited Nazi authority, but also had a sobering effect on the German people. Many bystanders were shocked by the uncontrolled violence and the lawless behavior of the mob. Worse for Hitler, they felt sympathy for the Jews that were manhandled and humiliated by...
I wonder why. Why would you feel sympathy for other people? Probably because it's human nature to feel sympathy for other humans that are going through some bullshit. Like, for real. I honestly, that's what I'm saying. You can't just hate. All right, cat, come on, let go. Let go of my shirt. Go on. You're done with your history lesson for today. You can't just hate all the Germans for what happened either, because there were a lot of them that were in complete disagreement with what was taking place. But if they said anything, they were likely to be killed as well.
the Nazi Party members. Hitler actively forbade any such organized pogroms in the future. The Jews, he insisted, were to be expelled from Germany through laws and edicts and detained far from the public eye. Over the next months, Jews who had broken the laws were sent to concentration camps, to Buchenwald, Dachau, and Sachsenhausen, which had previously housed political prisoners and actual criminals. Now the majority of the inmates were Jews. The fate of the Jews was to be tightly bound to Hitler's ambitions. On the road to war, the Fuhrer stylized himself as something of a prophet. In his speeches, he repeatedly warned of international Jewish influence and that if the Jews would steer Germany into another world war, then they would not survive to see its end. It seems like a self-fulfilling prophecy, as by December 1941, Hitler had invaded the Soviet Union and declared war on the United States, but his belief in the international conspiracy remained, and his war became a war against Jewish life itself.
Country in depression, nation in despair, one man seeking reasons everywhere. Growing hate and anger, the pure sword is worthless lies. Who was to be blamed and pay the price?
On December 20th, 1941, in a villa outside Berlin, the Wannsee Conference began. Prominent Nazi Party members met with officials from the Reich Main Security Office and from the occupied territories. Here, they would decide once and for all how to answer their Jewish question. The discussions were to offer, quote, clarity on questions of principle and the, quote, preparation of the final solution of the Jewish question in Europe. Emigration was not enough anymore. The war had changed Judenpolitik to something far, far more sinister. Authority over the final solution was given to the SS. Its leader, Heinrich Himmler, envisioned first Europe-wide deportations of Jews from the west to the east. Eichmann's office was ordered to prepare the removal of hundreds of thousands of Jews from Germany, Austria, Bohemia, and Moravia to the overcrowded ghettos of Eastern Europe. Since the war began in September 1939, the Jews of Galicia, the Vaterland, and Poland, organized as the Generalgouvernement, had been forced to live in segregated residential districts. But even though they were impoverished and cramped together in appalling living conditions, these Jewish communities survived. The final solution was to deny them even that. SS doctors now came into the ghettos to sort the residents into two categories. The first category was for young and healthy Jews who were able to work for the German war effort. The second was for those that could not, the old, the weak, the sick. These people were to be liquidated. The regular concentration camps had already improvised special treatment programs. That is a euphemism for the outright murder of Jews that could no longer work. Jews that were sent from the Łódź ghetto to the Chełmno camp were herded up a ramp and through a door. Behind that door, they entered the dark back compartment of a gas van. On their drive to a remote location, the men and women were asphyxiated, either with bottled carbon monoxide gas or exhaust fumes piped into the compartment. Once they reached the designated burial ground, a group of Jewish prisoners was ordered to drag the dead from the van into excavated pits. At the end of the day, those workers had to enter the pit as well and were shot dead.
In case you
The
haven't
Belzec
realized
death
yet,
camp
war is
was the
hell.
first installation for mass murder on an industrial scale. Belzec was enclosed by fences of barbed wire, watchtowers, and when trains full of Jews arrived, usually an SS officer stood in front of the crowd and reassured them that they would only remain in Belzec for a short time. They would now have a shower and receive their valuables and other belongings afterwards. Undressed, the men walked first into a long corridor, walled off by barbed wire. Now, it was there that the Ukrainian guards took over from the Germans. Chronic shortages of manpower forced the SS to rely on multitudes of foreign auxiliaries, known as Hivis or Tralniki men. Ukrainians, Belarusians, Lithuanians, Latvians, and Poles were recruited to serve as guards at the extermination camps. Armed with bayonets, clubs, and whips, they broke any resistance with terrifying violence. The gas chambers themselves were crude, simple buildings, 4 by 8 meters long, 2 meters high, with double wooden walls. Essential was the airtight rubber-sealed door, which also had to be strong enough to resist any strong force from within. Several hundred prisoners were pressed into the small space of the gas chamber. Once the door shut behind the crowd, the lethal exhaust fumes from a dismounted Soviet tank engine were piped into the chamber. The men were so tightly packed that when the doors were again opened, the dead stood in an upright position, mouths slightly open, with their hands often pressed against their chests. The women.
This is really like one of the greatest shameful disappointments in all of human history to me. Like, I understand that it wasn't until the concentration camps were discovered that they even knew that it was taking place, but still, somebody knew. People knew, and people let it happen. Lots of people let it happen, and that's absolutely ridiculous. And the sad thing is, it's not the only genocide or attempted genocide that's taken place. Even since then, like, we need to straighten ourselves up as a whole human race. Like, whether it's destroying ourselves or destroying the earth or we're always destroying something. And for what? Money?
Went next, after fellow prisoners came to cut off their hair to be used for industrial purposes. By then, it must have dawned on many of the women what fate awaited them. The SS men also didn't care that the guards raped many of the young girls before sending them into the gas chamber. The dead were buried in large pits concealed from the train station, and Jewish workers tidied up the station platform before the next train arrived.
There was a country in depression, there was a nation in despair. One man finding reasons everywhere. Then there was rising hate and anger. The pure sword is still applied. Who was to be blamed and sent to die?
The final solution was a vicious cycle. Ghettos were refilled with Jews from Central Europe as the former inhabitants were sent to either labor camps or condemned to death. Each wave of roundups meant a death sentence for tens of thousands of Jews.
Fuck.
As the SS grew in power over civil administration, the classifications changed, and more Jews were marked for death. New extermination camps were built as well: Treblinka, Majdanek, and Sobibor. Treblinka had little of the clean and deceptive murder machine the Nazis first envisioned. The massacres often started right at the train station, as the Jews were alerted to their impending fate by the corpses lying on the ground. The camp simply killed people too fast to hide its purpose. It is estimated that Treblinka killed around 4,600 people a day. That's nearly 200 per hour, every hour.
Wow.
Auschwitz became the last place designated as an extermination camp, though it had been in use since early in the war as a terror camp for Polish officials and dissidents. In July 1942, it was incorporated into the final solution. While Auschwitz I was to remain mainly a concentration camp for forced labor, a second Auschwitz camp at Birkenau would experiment with new extermination techniques. The first gas chamber there opened in March 1942, and it was outfitted with crematoria for disposing of the corpses of the dead. Once the prisoners were inside the gas chambers, SS men wearing gas masks would remove the covers of the ceiling vents, opening cans of Zyklon B poison. The body heat of the people pressed into the chamber caused the Zyklon B crystals to vaporize, releasing hydrogen cyanide gas. The Jews painfully choked to death on the fumes in minutes, even seconds. Auschwitz was also the place where German doctors experimented with mass...
Let me tell you real quick, as someone who's been in even just a training gas chamber environment where you got to take that mask off and even breathe in just any kind of gas, even if it's just a training gas, that is not a fun experience. That is one of the most hated things that you have to do while you're in the military. It's really just not pleasant choking to death or feeling like you're choking to death. So when you know that you're choking to death, I can only imagine what those people were feeling to not have that mask to reach for, to not have any hope in their bodies. Like, wow, holy shit.
Auschwitz was also the place where German doctors experimented with mass sterilization of many Jews that were not destined for immediate extermination. What had begun in 1935 would find its terrible conclusion in that year of 1942. The Nazis envisioned a final solution that would exterminate Jewish life in Europe. And as long as the war was fought, as long as the Nazis remained in power, and as long as the camps remained open, the Jews would suffer and die. The final solution was the darkest chapter in German history, and one of the darkest in our world's history. And the Holocaust is vital to be remembered as both a commemoration for its victims and as a warning to future generations of the depths to which humanity can sink and the atrocities that man can commit against his fellow man if the darkness and the hatred in some human souls is left unchecked and allowed to grow and fester.
The final solution. Dreams fade away and all hope turns to dust. When millions burn, the curtain has fallen, lost to the world as they perish in flames.
Tyler, you've been to Auschwitz. I've never been there. I haven't been there yet, but you guys have been there, yeah?
Yeah, we've been there 2 times with the band stopping by. Obviously, we play a lot of concerts in Krakow, and this is very close to Krakow. It's a place I always recommend our crew members and band members to go and visit. And even though the second time we came there, I choose not to go inside. I think that one time in this place is enough.
I can see that.
It leaves
totally.
you with serious scars after you come out, that's for sure. When we wrote the song, we thought we seen so many documentaries, we read so much about Auschwitz that we thought we could sort of be prepared to what we're gonna face.
Yeah.
I mean, both me and Joachim talked about this so many times afterwards that you can't get prepared for this, because no matter how much you think you know about it, no matter how much you think that you are sort of prepared yourself, you are absolutely zeroed out when you start to walk around there, and when you walk out of there, there's not anything left in you.
I can 100% see that.
I had no reason to go in there and feel this again. I encourage the other guys to go inside, but I wouldn't go inside myself a second time.
And just writing the song in the first place, I mean, it is a heavy topic, sure, but it is also a controversial topic. You know there are Holocaust deniers out there. You know there's people out there that when you wrote the song, did you get reception? Did you get critique from?
We get, as there can be sometimes with Sabaton, there can be people who say, "Oh, you are profiting from this," or you write a song to become popular about this.
A lot of people like to say that bullshit.
There are angles that people try to sort of attack the band Sabaton for what we are doing. Again, we are telling history and we are keeping it alive, and we choose, of course, not to see that we are in any way, promoting anything that we are singing about in this terms of, we're just saying this happened.
Yeah.
The same people that like to say, "Oh, you're profiting off of that," when people are actually just trying to keep the message alive and keep people aware of stuff, are the same people that are like, they're the same people that are offended by everything. They're the same people that don't want you to know history. They're the same people that wanted to probably petition to change our schools' curriculums to erase a lot of history. Like, they're those kind of people. I've thoroughly enjoyed what Sabaton is doing, and all of you guys who are here watching this with me, like, for real, like, what better way to learn history? What better way to keep history alive? To keep us from making those stupid mistakes again, than to keep it in everybody's mind.
In this terms of, we're just saying this happened.
Yeah.
But we had a lot of people who got upset when we did this song.
Okay.
And I think that people get upset with it shows the power of the topic. Yeah. And
it's
in one way, I think that it should just be very clear and not disputed, but it is.
Well, what about, as you said, you're telling the story of what happened. What about people that say, "No, it didn't happen"? What about them? I mean, they obviously get upset for a completely different reason.
Yeah, they get upset for a different reason, and we have seen a couple of those comments as well. But in the comment section, sometimes this it gets quite nasty when somebody tells like that, and the continuation of the comments is leading often into a sort of war. It's that kind of song.
Okay, well, I personally am glad that you write songs about glad. That's not what I mean, but you know what I mean. I think it's important that you write songs.
It's very important, 100%.
Even the absolute darkest parts of our history. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye for today. Never forget.
Thank you for watching Sabaton History Channel.
All right, that was Sabaton History. We're jumping right into the final solution from here back in the jet. We're back with the final solution loaded up. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. Now that everybody's seen the history portion, or you've skipped to this part because you didn't feel like seeing this history portion, I know a lot of people, this is a very touchy subject. I know a lot of people out there do not like to discuss this. I do feel, however, that it is important what Sabaton is doing to keep this kind of thing on everyone's mind and to keep us remembering the tragic parts as well as the good parts of history. Let's go.
nation in despair. One man seeking reasons everywhere. Growing hate and anger, the furious orders were precise. Who was to be blamed and pay the price? Propaganda, turning neighbors into foes. Soldiers of
The sad thing is the wicked propaganda turning neighbors into foes is even huger now. Only it's normal and we accept it as like our news and stuff. Come on. It's always something to do with something that turns us to hate each other. It's not something you're born with. No human is born hating another human.
Turning neighbors into foes. Soldiers of the Third Reich searching homes. And then their former friends are watching as they are round up one by one. Times of persecutions, yes, they're done. Ever since it started on Kristallnacht 38, when liberty died and truth was denied. Sent away on trains, sent on a one-way trip to hell. Enter the gates, Auschwitz awaits. Where freedom burns, the final solution. Dreams fade away and all hope turns to dust. When millions learn the curtain has fallen, lost to the world as they perish in flames.
Yo, legit, I'll say it. Mad shout out to Sabaton. Mad props to them for even keep putting this out because they knew that they would probably get a lot of hate from this. They really did. Like, when I was going through high school, we learned about all of this. And we learned about Auschwitz and all of the horrible shit that they were doing and all of that. But then, like, I speak to kids these days, they're going to school. It's like, oh, all we did to cover that portion was read the Diary of Anne Frank. The fuck out of here. Like, seriously, we really need to keep this on the front of our head because this is a dark ass time in human history. This shows you what happens when people want that money a little bit too much, or when someone with hate gets a little bit too much power. Ultimate power, it just corrupts people. It really does. It doesn't matter where you are. It's way too easy to become corrupted by power and greed. Like, when you're put into that position, you just feel like, oh, I'm God. Come on.
There was a nation in despair. One man finding reasons everywhere. Then there was rising hate and anger. The furious orders still apply. Who was to be blamed and sent to die? Ever since it started on Kristallnacht 38, when liberty died and truth was denied. Away on trains, sent on a one-way trip to hell. Enter the gates, Auschwitz awaits. When freedom burns, the final solution. When millions burn, the curtain has fallen, lost to the world as they perish in flames. When freedom burns, the final solution, dreams fade away and all hope turns to dust. When millions burn, the curtain has fallen, lost to the world as they perish in flames.
Super tragic part of history. Super important song from Sabaton. Awesome piece of history before this. Like, this was a great one. I was putting it on the back burner at first because I knew that there was going to be a lot of people out there that don't like to talk about this stuff. But honestly, the more I think about it, the more we need this, because we need to be reminded of what we're capable of the dark things that humans are capable of. If we can't see the dark things that we're doing already to the world and to each other, like, just look at our history. The whole of human history is filled with darkness and terrible things. Get up here, cat. Stop meowing. I'll feed you in a minute. Definitely an important video. For sure. Like, we need some more history from Sabaton. And we will be doing the live stream very soon for the Gallipoli one. I'm just waiting to hear back from my donator to see which way and which day he wants to do it. There's some other stuff coming up as well. I appreciate you guys for being here, for sticking around this long. If you did make it this long, seriously, appreciate you 100%. Like, you guys are everything to me. Appreciate you so much for being here and for rocking with the channel, hitting that like and that subscribe and all of that. If you guys did like this content, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Check out one of my other videos that's floating around. Subscribe if you want to see more content, possibly your content, and to join the greatest YouTube family ever. Subscribe button's right over here. Until the next one, I'm highly combustible. I love y'all to the moon and back. I'm out of here. Peace.